And the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, Mr. Adewale-Smatt Oyerinde, has raised concerns over the rising cost of living in the country. NECA's DG says he is already having a negative impact on the country's poverty and production index. Mr. Oyerinde added that rising inflation rate, commodity price instability, reduced industry capacity and utilization, and a gradual dwindling of the purchasing power of Nigerians has dragged many enterprises out of existence and Nigerians below the poverty lines. Well, with me on the show today is the same person, the Director General himself, Mr. Adewale-Smatt Oyerinde. He's a seasoned human resources practitioner who read and practiced human capital management. His experience cuts across all core HR functions. Thank you so much. It's good to have you. He's joining us from the United Kingdom to talk more about this. It's good to see you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm actually at one beautiful place in Lagos, actually, at Lakowe.
Oh, you're back. Oh, I thought you were still abroad. Well, welcome back then, back to Nigeria. Yes, that's very good. And let's start our discussion with the rising cost of living, which you stated in your press release. You are making us understand the impact on poverty and production index. Can you tell us more about this and what it means?
Well, it's quite obvious. First, thank you for having us once again.
Good.
And it's quite obvious the challenges, the ongoing challenges that we face as a people and as a nation, probably because of where we drag ourselves into, the conspiracies that we've created to put the nation or the country in this perilous, very difficult position. It is no more news that the first subsidy was removed, rightly so. It is also no more news that there were so many consequences arising from the first subsidy removal, which we expected that once it is removed, there will be some reactions, some market reactions. Then we also had the issue of the floating of the Naira, which hasn't achieved the kind of result that the government expected it to achieve, at least not in the short term. And all these together, and we're rising inflation, all this together they've converged to create the kind of dynamics we have now, where there is increasing cost of commodity, there is an increasing cost of products generally, the cost of production itself have reduced, wages and remuneration generally have not risen to meet the rising cost of goods and services, which naturally, altogether have consequential effects on the living standard of an average Nigerian. And this is the major concern that we have, because it's a double-edged sword. As households and workers' income continue to dwindle by whatever reason, either high cost of production, then it also affects the ability of a business to sell goods and sell services. So if the business cannot sell goods and do have off-takers for services, two things will happen. It's most likely for goods. There will be stocks, increasing stocks, unsold stocks, that if you are not careful, might also run into expiry. And once goods are unsold and they expire, it creates another dynamics for the business, because a business that borrowed at 15% interest rate at the bank, and currently interest rate is running to 18, 19, 20%. It compounds the challenge of that business. And if it cannot survive, it either relocates to another client, it either cuts its staffing capacity, which might also lead to rising unemployment rate, and also creates different kind of dynamics for government, its government's ability to generate income through corporate tax. So our view is this, that whatever government is doing, beautiful policies that have been put in place or that have been initiated, that we need to be fast in implementation of those policies. We need to be fast within the context of providing palliatives so that we can oil the wheel of consumption and production, which for us is simple economics. Once you can create an environment where consumption is furthered or promoted, which will also translate to production being increased, then we'll have bring ourselves back to the path of growth that we are all expecting.
Removal of subsidy and curbing oil theft, and of course, tax administrative reforms that we see. Many say this would definitely take us, if you allow me, to the promised land. So how long is this transition period in your understanding?
You know, there's a lot of, between the point of removing first subsidy and the point where the market forces will determine the cost of petrol, between the point of floating the naira and when the market forces will determine the actual value of the naira, between the point of curbing, of reducing or eliminating oil theft, and when it will actually translate to actual sale and recovery of your revenue from that. There's a lot of things that happen in between, a lot of dynamics. And if you don't deal with those dynamics, you realize there will always be crisis for you. Among the dynamics you have to deal with is issue of sabotage. Among the dynamics you have to deal with the issue of people that are already entitled to benefiting from those schemes, and now they realize their gain is up and want to create different kind of bottlenecks. So you have to deal with those issues. The ability of governments to deal with those issues, this transition period, will determine how fast we'll come out of this quagmire. And for us, it's also very instructive that government should do whatever it takes. And thank God we have that the list of the ministers is already with the Senate. We have to get the wheel of government going. You know, ministers, the head of agencies, they have to be in place to play their complementary role. The way it is currently, I think every decision, every policy is coming from the presidency, from the president's office, which creates a lot of bottleneck, a lot of issues comes up from that. Once the ministers are in place, once round pegs are in round holes, then you decentralize those decision-making apparatus. The Minister of Trade will handle issues concerning trade. The Minister of Labor handles issues concerning labor. You know, our colleagues in organized labor have also issued another threat for a strike starting next week. The Minister of Labor should be able to apprehend or call all stakeholders to the table to discuss that, not the presidency. So once we have the round pegs in round holes, then that is when we actually put the machinery of government in order. But before then, we request the government to, as quickly as possible, live up to its commitment by announcing the issue of the palliatives for Nigerians and for Nigerian workers. We can't be planning in the chamber. We can't be planning in the presidential village. Whatever is to be given, let government be open, let government communicate it and build consensus around all those issues. But definitely, among those palliatives that we expect, it's not the 8,000 naira monthly sharing, because that will not make much difference.
Now, DG, let's talk about price stability, which is expected, and that's your write-up. You talked about periodic feedbacks from government, which I also see, or from back to government, about progress of all of these policies. I see this as very important steps to be taken. Of course, issues around the refineries getting to work will also, one way or the other, help us address some of the freight and all of this dollarizing of the crude oil market. But how do you, or in what way do you see government addressing or introducing this price stability mechanism?
You know, in basic economics,
yes,
you know, primary economics 101, where demand and supply drives the whole process. If demand is more than supply, then naturally you probably will have increasing prices. If supply far exceeds demand, you probably will have everything being equal, as economics we call it, ceteris paribus. You have prices going down. It's the same thing for most economic goods. For agricultural products, if supply exceeds demand, then the price of goods and services will naturally come down. Price of to exceed demand, We deal with the issue of security for the farmers in the hinterland. Let the farmers, let them be able to produce and create a channel, a safe channel for them to move the goods to the city where those goods can be sold and sold cheaply. Same for dollars. You know, if you want to really get the real value of the naira, pump up supply within the context of, let's deal with the issue of oil theft so that we can actually sell our quota that is given to us by OPEC. Let's make the environment much more appealing for investors to come so that we can have foreign direct investment and pumping more dollars to the environment. If you don't deal with that, your demand will consistently outweigh your supply, and there's nothing you can do within the context of that system to manage to create price stability. Progressively, if you don't do that, you'll be forced to regulate. And once you start to regulate this sector, you start to regulate that sector, then you have lost the whole conversation about market forces creating the dynamics for the economy. So first, let's ramp up our ability to produce agricultural products, produce local products within the context of manufacturing in Nigeria, made in Nigerian goods, produce our own oil, our own PMS. Because there's no reason, absolutely no reason, why we are still where we are within the context of our refineries. Why those refineries are not working, they are beyond natural contemplation. That is the simple way I can explain. Absolutely no reason why one of our refineries should not be working in 2023.
All right, then wrapping up this now, talking about immediate palliatives that can help address some of these issues at the moment. As NECA, what are you looking at with regards to this? In some strict terms, what do you think can help start to energize the entire services and manufacturing space?
One, the challenges with Forex remains. We know there is the Naira has gone up, the value of the Naira has lost value significantly. Government need to do something quickly within the context of stabilizing that environment so that production, the purchase of input that needs for Forex can commence again. For the employer, for the worker side, I think it's also very important that government conclude conversation with our colleagues in the Nigerian Labour Congress and TUC, so that definitive short-term, medium-term, and long-term palliatives can be agreed on and implementation starts immediately. For the private sector, it will be, we've communicated this to government, that it will be counterproductive. If you deal with palliatives from the context of demand and you leave the issue of supply, if you give each household 100,000 naira as palliatives today, and the operating environment for enterprises still remains as it is, the 100,000 will be neutralized by the increased cost of goods and services. So we must look at those two areas. How do we support organized businesses? There are conversations that have been held about reform of the tax system, with Taiwo Oyedele as chairman, which is welcome. There have been conversations about merging or streamlining the taxes that organized businesses pay from federal to the local government, which is also beautiful. But we must fast track the implementation of those policies so that we can get the desired result as quickly as possible. Beautiful policies that government has come up with, but as we said some time ago, we cannot or we should not allow those that we are trying to save to die before help comes to them. Whatever policy, whatever palliative that government is planning, I think this is the time to roll them out for households, for organized labor, and for corporate Nigeria.
It's a good way to leave it, Mr. Adewale Oyerinde, the Director General, NECA. It's really good to have you join us on the program, Nigerian Employers Consultative Association's DG there. Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.